You know that map you sent me of the different areas of the Gnarley Forest?
With the bandits,
No, that was
with
that was
the
you.
Gnarley
Yeah,
Ranger,
yeah, the Gnarley
the Gnarley
Rangers.
Rangers. Yeah. Yes.
I don't know why I added it to the Gnarley Forest or the Gnarley Rangers article. Oh, there it is. How come it didn't pop up before? Okay, so in the Gnarley Rangers article, I don't know why I didn't see this earlier while I was trying to get through these articles here. If you scroll down to the middle, so this map is by Heligant. He actually provided this to me, and he actually has zone of controls or areas, named areas of the Gnarley Forest. And so you'll find a lot of this lore in a lot of these articles referring to these areas of the Gnarley. And where did you get these original names, like the Tor Badlands or Kron Woodlands? Where did you get those names originally?
I came up with the Tor Badlands. I think I've been using that term for about 20 years, just
Dang.
because you've got. I mean, the Tor Badlands essentially. I think the first time I came across that, I think is it Noble Ambitions, the very first adventure
Yes.
for yeah, they make
VERO1.
yeah, yeah. You've suddenly got, on the Imrid's flow, you've suddenly got a swamp, and I don't think the swamp was there before that.
No, it wasn't.
And
Yeah,
yeah, I said
there's a
okay, so
big change between Anna Meyer's maps and the original World of Greyhawk maps and the T1 module maps. And everybody seems to make that mistake a lot. I get a lot of that when
yeah,
people come to my Discord. They're always referring to these geographical locations on the original maps from the module. It has nothing to do with this campaign because it's so much has changed, and the catalyst for that change is Living Greyhawk, and Anna Meyer's kind of cemented that in canon with her maps that everybody's using. So I don't want to fight against something so popular that we're just going to go with it. And so whatever is
yeah,
on that of Meyer's map is pretty much now cemented of what consists of Greyhawk for running this campaign at least, right?
yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
you added these zones.
yeah. I mean, I tried to think, very, very organically,
Yeah.
no pun intended, regarding the Gnarly Woods, about um, where matters of import were. So you've got Coruscant, which is the central heartlands. It's kind of the safest place in the forest in terms of you have Clan Shedandil,
Yeah.
you have Clan Meldarin. You have the two most populous and
And you have
um,
Korstoth, which is the hometown of the Gnarley
exactly,
Rangers.
exactly. So that is kind of the area, kind of least concern. It's where the Gnarly Rangers are strongest. And
Right.
then I thought I would create the Tor Badlands because you have the Temple of Elemental Evil, you have this swamp, which is obviously going to be a magnet for things like black dragons, green hags, trolls, um, and so you've got two nasty areas there that are
Right.
just going to be magnets for trouble. And because you've got a swamp, and because you've got elemental, magical, chaotic phenomena taking place,
Yeah.
the
First,
Rangers would just be looking at it
the
and just
fir-
going, "That's a bad place." So I
and
thought the Badlands.
the
I like
first
that.
rising of the Temple of Elemental Evil happened there too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
the thing I was concerned about, and I didn't want to make this mistake, is originally Viscounty of Verbobonc wasn't that bad when it came to monsters. You might find a troll or an ogre, and
Mm,
adventurers will go off and kill it. That kind of level of threat. We're not. I'm totally on the west side of the continent here, along the
mm,
Crystal Mist Mountains or anything like that. We're talking about the heart of the breadbasket of civilization. So there's not going to be
true.
too much bad stuff, especially after the hateful wars in the Lord Mountains where they cleaned out all those tribes. So
Mm,
it's not going to be too bad in those. And also, the fence isn't that big, really. Not really. And
mm.
it's not a big area. So I didn't want to go overboard and put anything too powerful there, because I thought that'd be
I
kind
think
of
that's great.
lopsided. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I'm
absolutely. And if you look at the old um, random encounter tables for the Viscounty,
Yeah,
going back to 1980, you've got civilized and uncivilized. And civilized, your typical random encounter is going to be a patrol of knights or merchants or gnomes or dwarves or elves selling
Yeah.
selling stuff, So, but then you get to the fringe, and where you've got the Etta Hills, and then suddenly you've got you've got this terrible swamp. You've got the Fens of Tor, and you've got the Temple of Elemental Evil. Just Badlands just seem to suit. So I called that the Tor Badlands.
Yeah,
And then
I agree.
north,
I like it.
north of that you've got the Riverland, which is, it actually follows the curve of the Velvediver. So their concerns are a little more prosaic. Their concerns are oversettlement.
I also think that area is a heavy environment. It's a heavy area with woodsmen, human woodsmen. Those are woodsman towns. They live off the land. They're hunters and they're timber, lumber. I think that's the industry there is lumber and hunting.
Absolutely, yeah. So the local ranger knight, her main concern is overpopulation and over logging of the forest, and she works very, very closely with the Druids of the Old Faith to try to counter that. East of that, you've got what I call the Lake Verge. So this is the part of the forest that intersects with the domain of the Free City of Divers. And Divers is a shipbuilding powerhouse. So what's going to happen to the forest next to the shipbuilding powerhouse?
Yeah, they'll be harvested.
And I live in a part of Australia where we used to have some of the tallest trees in the world, and most of them are gone now, and it's because of shipbuilding.
Wow.
So no one's allowed to touch those forests anymore. But the forest took a massive hit, and it's because those trees grew very tall and very straight, and that's what shipbuilders want. So the Gnarley Rangers in the Lake Verge, they're worried about their ip trees, which grow very tall and straight. They're worried about their roanwoods. And, you've also got the problem of, in the Living Greyhawk campaign, there was a necromancer who is actually a lich who was a druid who tried to open a gate to, I think, Hades at the Battle of Bad Deep, and everything went a little bit wrong. And Bad Deep is kind of in the southwest of the purview of the Lake Verge, and it is a growing blight that the Gnarley Rangers and the Druids work yearly to try to limit. So again, you've got more prosaic concerns because politics is a massive issue. How does the Gnarley Ranger counter potentially thousands of troops that divers can send into the Verge to ensure their logging rights? So they need to take a more diplomatic approach. Mm-hmm. In the east, we've got the Greyhawk Verge. And you've got very similar concerns there, but you've just got more of a broader swathe. So that's kind of verging on the Cairn Hills and going all the way down to Hardby nearly, and the north of the Wild Coast. So they have very similar concerns as well. So they're trying to work with Lord Loxwell, who is a landed knight who is a member of Greyhawk's nobility. So they try to sort of tap him, and their major concern is Blackthorn.
Yeah, I see Blackthorn on the map right now. That's the home turf. That's the tribe of Blackthorn of ogres and orcs.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful location that's really well set out in the City of Greyhawk box set. And there's been a lot of links made. I think the Divers Living Greyhawk campaign connected them to the Pomage, which is an interesting storyline you can take. I would probably prefer to sort of ally them with local Underdark communities. As written, the ogres are in control and the orcs are their slaves, but that is not necessarily a static situation.
Right. Well, what I did in my campaign is I wanted to add some organization to the orcs in the campaign, and and they were the only real tribe I was aware of 5 or 6 years ago, and so I chose them to collaborate and work with certain Temple of the Elemental Evil agents, and they were made aware of the ancient Soul ruins just east of the Fence of Tor, within the Tor Badlands.
The Skull Cave,
So they sent a warband there
Yeah.
to take possession of these
Mhm.
ruins, and they're encamped there. And that's when the players get there to recover the lost treasures of House Osbury. And so they have to defeat the warband, the chief war band guy, and his shaman, and all his orcs there. And that's why. And that's the only thing. In my research, I wanted to use. I try to stick to canon as much as possible. What exists already out there. I just don't want to make something up if I didn't have to. And I found them, so I decided to use them because I thought that'd be cool. And I like the name Blackthorn Orcs, And so that's what I did. And then you came along, and now you introduced like 2 or 3 more tribes in the area.
Yeah. I mean, and just for the simple fact that, I mean, when you've got a general route like what happened at the end of the Hateful Wars, there's always going to be stragglers who don't stay with the main horde. So I thought, what might happen there? So I made up the Storm Eye Orcs and a bunch of other very, very small tribes that were almost wiped out, and they took shelter in the Fens of Tor and in the Tor Badlands, and became a problem there because orcs breed. And it's been 3 or 4 generations. So in 591, the Ranger Knight of the Tor Badlands hates orcs, and he has basically annihilated most of those tribes. But those that remain have kind of coalesced into the Storm Eyes. The other major tribe is the Howling Moon, and the Howling Moon were the orcs that IUs sent south through the Underdark to be the foot soldiers, or some of foot soldiers, to the first temple. And when the first temple fell, the orcs fled into the Fens of Tor, and now these 2 orc tribes are warring over who gets to control that lovely bit of real estate.
Well, I'm bringing up the map now. I wanted to show everybody on screen that I added those tribes, I believe. So DM only locations. And if I zoom in, I didn't add them here. Where did I add them? Oh, it's the Eastern Viscounty. Okay, so let me go back to the Eastern Viscounty. I added them there. So anybody wanting to add these tribes to their campaign, and they have been added to all the articles I wrote. So this is the Eastern Viscounty map, and I go ahead and go to the DM only locations, and sure enough, there they are. Okay, so there's House Osbury, Asbury Manor. There's Penwick right there. So if we go east to Emride Run, and then the Fens of Tor, and then if you go southeast, Vassal Tor is the Lizardman village that I've created. That's available online with the VTT map. I'm almost done with the lore level. I got sidetracked though because I'm working on a manor for Nob. And right here, this white square is the Howling Moon clan, originated from the war-torn lands of Uas, transplanted to the Western Gnarley Forest. That happened after the Greyhawk Wars, and they don't really exist in my timeline of 576 Common Year, right? And then before you enter that, a little bit to the north is the Storm Eyes clan, and they kind of they raid, they harvest and they hunt in the Fens of Tor and cause trouble up and down through this section of the forest. So there's 2 clans right there. And is there another one? That was it, right?
Oh, that was it. Yeah.
I remember now. And down south is the Hill Giant clan, but it's not on this map. Okay.
Yeah, the White Rock. Yeah, and I really wanted to show 2 different kinds of orc culture there, because when you go back to AD&D, orcs were these lawful evil, quite militaristic society, whereas as the editions moved along, orcs became more barbaric, more tribal, more wild, more chaotic. So the Storm Eyes, they are quite content to block the road and demand attacks and then let the merchants through, whereas the Howling Moon will just annihilate everything in sight, take the booty, go back and have a celebration. So these 2 orcs are chalk and cheese. So I really wanted to show, I don't know, I guess it was for my own entertainment, to sort of game out in my own mind what would happen between 1st edition orcs and 3rd edition orcs. That was kind of the genesis of that storyline. Yeah.
Well, on the screen right now is the article for the Stormeye clan, and it's fully written out, all their origins and their history, the clan, the structure of their clan, the chieftain and the warlord, the shaman. 5e stat block on the right with some artwork there, and there's also the tribe icon emblem that they use. And if you scroll down farther, you get to the tactics and their guerrilla warfare tactics in the Fenzator. The clan forces is a total strength of 220 members, and I got them listed here, the military strength broken down. And I also added some adventuring hooks to give you some ideas what you might want to use them for in your campaign. What I'm using for, I was using the Blackthorn orcs to take possession of the Ancient Soul Temple, but it seems to me like these would actually be a better choice to take over the ruins there. Yeah, I really appreciate you describing, you explaining where these areas came from in the Gnarley Forest. I'll put the map up again on screen, and it really helps. So we skipped something important thing.
So we didn't get to the Cron Woods, and we
Okay.
didn't get to the Wild Coast Verge. So the Cron Woods, I mean, it's I think Anna Meyer's the gold standard for. I mean, she's an unbelievable resource that the fans of Greyhawk have.
Yeah.
But the Cron Hills actually go a considerable way into the Gnarley Forest, because if you read the description of Nambural, it's actually in quite a steep valley in the Cron Hills. So the Cron Hills go a considerable way into the Gnarley Forest. And I thought it really needed some elaboration in terms of the Gnarley Rangers having an area that basically is bounded by the Kingdom of Selene in the south, and in the midst of the forested Gnarley Forest. So, where Sheernob is and where the White Rock clan is, incredibly dense, broken ground covered in trees. So I really wanted a ranger to be in charge of that area, So that's
hard.
where the term the woods came from.
Artistically, that's hard to depict. It really is.
Oh, it would be. It would be a nightmare.
It is.
Yeah.
I've been playing this new video game called Kingdom Come 2, and they do an excellent job of depicting that. I mean, it feels like you're really there. Really high quality game. I mean, it really feels like you're in 1450 Bohemia. And they have an area just like what you're explaining. There's a section on that map that you go to, these ravines and steep sides and hilly, craggy, and also really thick, dark forest. It's an exact depiction of what you're saying what you're describing right now in that area of the Gnarley Forest.
Yeah,
I'm going to think about doing a video on that.
It'd be great. You kind of want an area of the Gnarley where it moves into the Whelkwood, and it's got to have natural barriers there, because there's got to be a reason why the Viceroyalty of Ferendy didn't butt heads with the elf lords of the area that is currently Selene, because there was no kingdom of Selene at that time, but the elves had been established there for thousands of years. So it's a good natural barrier to delimit the reach of the Viceroyalty. So it just made a lot of sense to make it extremely rugged and extremely sparsely populated, and just a beautiful natural barrier. And the last section.
But before we get to the last section, Greg Wasson joined us. I put him up on screen here. He said, much like Costidus, I have borrowed thoroughly from the work of Three Orcs and the info he has posted on World Anvil and his books at the Dungeon Masters Guild. Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate your support, and you're enjoying the material in your campaign. I really like to hear from Dungeon Masters, what they've done in their campaign with the material that I created. So it helps shape and guide the future of the campaign, creating more. I want to know if I need to go more into the Wild Coast, go up to Divers, maybe start going into Luna, maybe more into Selene. I don't know, Lort Mill Mountains, more of the dwarf stuff. So I like to hear from DMs what they're doing and what their interest is. And I really appreciate you saying that to me. And I really appreciate, I think you've been following me for a while, and keep it up. And if you have any questions on here, ask away and we can answer them for you. Okay. So we're talking about the Welk Borderlands.
Yeah. So the Welk Borderlands, it's probably one of the most pressing concerns for the Gnarley Rangers, because they are aware that it is the highway that a number of bandit companies, mercenary companies, goblinoid tribes, and orc tribes are using to get to the Temple of Elemental Evil. So, of all of the areas in 576, this is the hotbed. You've got elf clans who are upset with nobody doing anything to stop these bandits, mercenaries, orcs, and goblins from coming through their lands. Selene doesn't formally control this territory, but you've got all these human polities that claim that they do, and the elves are like, well, why aren't you stopping this? So it is a source of tension for the elves. You've got Rothkor suddenly appearing there and throwing his around, and you've got the Wild Coast itself. I mean, Narwhal directly abuts this territory, and Narwhal isn't the nicest place in the world. Like, even before the Greyhawk Wars, Narwhal was full of bastards. So
I have Narwhal, the article on the website. I just haven't filled it in with all the locations in the city yet.
Yeah. So this particular Ranger Knight, she really has her hands full because she has to treat with the elves and work with the elves and convince them that not all humans are bad, and she has to try to stop these humanoids from using her part of the forest to get to the Tor Badlands and the Temple of Elemental Evil. And you've got a green dragon, and you've also got the people of Narwhal, who are obviously going to do whatever logging they feel they should,
right?
To
it's right there,
expand their settlement. And Bad Deep is right there as well. Bad Deep falls in her territory, so Bad Deep is, it has been a plague on the Gnarley Forest for about, I think, 700 or 800 years, and they're doing their best to stop this rot from expanding further into the forest.
What's interesting, looking at this map, you see the merchant roads. No, those are merchant roads. They're major roads because they're on the map. Minor roads are not on the Anna Myers maps. So obviously these are major. They're dotted lines, but they're still major enough to be on the map. So I classify them as merchant roads. And it looks like if you want to do any kind of trade as a merchant from the Wild Coast, like Narwhal to Hamlet, you're going to have to go through Humming's End and the Welk, both Cron Woodlands and the Welk borderlands, and past Oakvane. And that means you're going to be passing between the two clans of NFL, NLFL, and I can't read it.
Filefel. In my game, I call it the Wild Road. Just because it goes to the Wild Coast, and B, because if you piss off the elves, then the elves are going to, be at best, see,
that touches
your wagon.
That touches on another subject. We talked about this last week. There's a big gaping hole in the campaign on the website, right smack down the middle of the Gnarley Forest, which is the 4 clans. And we don't have anything on the 4 clans. They're mentioned in the Gnarley Forest article, but they each need their own article of the village itself, their community, their politics, their relationships, the leaders, and their area of control. What kind of patrols they have, how far out do they go? It looks like this road passes between 2 of those clans. Is this like
2 of their strongholds anyway, and very close to Oakvane as well.
Something needs to be defined here, because any dungeon master that wants to run a campaign in this area, you shouldn't be vague about this, because you don't know what your players are going to do, and they're going to do something weird or different. Come out of the left field to do something. You're not going to be prepared for this. You just got to make something up.
100%.
And I think it's beneficial to any dungeon master out there to have this stuff defined, and that's the goal of my website.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I think I pointed out last week, it bears mentioning that the way these labels on the map, they are the stronghold of each clan, but each the clans intermix. So in any given tree town in the Gnarley Forest, you will have a handful of clan and Lenafil. You might have a little bit more of that of the Filefel, and then you're going to have more of the Meldarin and the Sherendil. You've got intermixing, so that the clans have stronghold areas of the forest, but they are all in each other's communities. So,
I get
you
that.
know, I dare say, you know, I will definitely address that when I finish up my little piece on the NLFL, because I'll be moving straight on to the fear level.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.